honestly, we got some problems here we got to solve that are bigger than either party. And I've seen your commentary on this, but Republican or Democrat, we don't want to live in a world where someone can use political opposition research to reorient the investigative bodies or the intelligence bodies within our country. And so I hope that some of our Democratic colleagues will actually work with us so that we can get more transparency, so that we can depoliticize the investigations and intelligence work our country has to do.
But does that also call, if we're going to call for transparency and as much information to come from Bob Mueller's report as possible for the public to see, that's one space. But shouldn't we also see as much as we can on the FISA applications that started this investigation? Shouldn't we actually see, what politics were at play in the FBI and DOJ to make sure this doesn't happen again? Because what's clear is this was a political movement, a 2-year investigation into a sitting president, and no collusion was found. We should go back and go, how did that happen? Yeah. How did this start? How do we make sure, as you mentioned, it doesn't happen again?
Yeah, it's a great point, Sean. I think the fastest way to accelerate those reforms and that transparency would be for the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, to declassify the over 50 transcripts from interviews taken by the House Intelligence Committee. The House Intelligence Committee under Chairman Nunes's leadership voted for those to be declassified. And if you look at the transcripts from, Clapper, Brennan, McCabe, Comey, I really want to understand their thinking at the point in time where you saw Peter Strzok and Lisa Page texting one another, oh, the White House wants to be involved. President POTUS wants to know what's happening, of course, being President Obama, and to really see where this germinated and how it was allowed to exist. But declassifying those things, and we've been waiting for 4 months for DNI Coats to do that.
So why hasn't DNI Coats declassified the
I don't
information?
know. I mean, we've been calling for him to do it. I think that, frankly, there are some in the intelligence community who are always embarrassed whenever there is a negative light cast on the intelligence community. But I think we've got to embrace that challenge rather than ignoring it, because if you ignore it, as we see, these types of things do tend to repeat themselves.
But we also, we give our intelligence community a lot of power over our lives, over our societies, and we do it because we want them to keep us safe. Traditionally from overseas threats, but with that authority comes responsibility. And if they use the authority that we give them, the tools that we give them, and they use them against the American people or an American president for a political purpose, if they don't come clean on what happened, the pressure comes on us to take some of that power away. And if we do that, we're less safe. And so, they don't want to be embarrassed, but they also want the tools to continue. And so I do think it's in their best interest, in the intelligence community's best interest, and in America's best interest to say, we made mistakes. This is what they were. This is how we remedy it. And how we move forward.
And some of the patriotic men and women who work in that intelligence community want to see that occur, because I've talked to a number of these folks who say the worst thing that could happen would be if the country loses such trust in us that we can't do the critically important work to go after the terrorists and to keep the country safe. And so I think we need to have a moment of reckoning here. I think it has to be bipartisan. I think that no one party can solve this alone.
But how do you navigate that, man? We're on the floor, and I think